Hello everyone, I am the one and only Boiler and I welcome you to this video where I will show you how you select components for your own PC build. Now I promised you this when I did the video about my own shopping list and I promised you that this will be out sometime last week. Now obviously I could not hold that promise. The reason for that is that I was just way busier with my own PC that I built than I anticipated, and I just didn't find the time or the energy to do this properly, and I really want to do this properly. You guys deserve quality videos and I want to deliver quality videos. So now I have more time and more energy this week, and I am doing this now and hope I will be able to deliver a quality guide to you guys so that you will then be able to make your own builds if you so desire. Now, without further ado, let's just jump into this, shall we? Now first, where the hell are we here? We are on Newegg, as you can see in the top left corner here. Newegg is a US online store that sells all kinds of electronic devices, computer components, automotive parts, tools and whatnot. And it's a great site to make shopping lists for computer systems. Now obviously I am not a US citizen, so why the hell am I here? The reason is pretty simple. This is just the best site that I know of to do this. We have online shops here in Switzerland where I live, but compared to Newegg, they just suck. That's just the way it is. The filters they have, the selection of components they have, it's just not the same. So if you're doing a list for your new PC and you really want to make sure you have the components with all the right features and all the right specifications, then Newegg is just the place to be. Because not only does it have all the components in its shop, it also has good information on all the components, and it has usually correct information, which is something I cannot say for all the stores I know. And one thing it also has is absolutely fantastic filters and tons of them. So Newegg really lets you narrow down each component to the exact feature list and exact specifications you want or need. And this is really helpful, as you will just see in a moment. So yeah, this is why I like Newegg. This is why I like doing my lists here, because it's the most convenient online store that I know of for this. And then once you have your list, you can still go to your local equivalent and buy your components there. So yeah, I mean, if for making a list, you can go to Newegg and then you just take that list and go shop for components in an online store where you live. So what else? Yeah, actually, I will do a shopping cart list. So we'll just browse through the store and select components and throw them into the shopping cart, and that will be our list. But there is also a PC builder on this side that you can see up here. I will not use that because it seems unnecessarily complicated to me, because I just always just did the shopping cart list, and that worked fine for me, and it's easy, it's fast, it's simple, and this might be, I don't know, it might be more powerful or more, I don't know what. To me, it just seems more complicated. So you can try that out. I will not show you how it works because I don't really understand it fully because I never used it. But you can use the PC Builder if you want to know how it works. There is certainly a YouTube video somewhere explaining that. But I will not use it because I find it needlessly convoluted and complicated. So we'll just do a shopping cart list here. And yeah, what are we going to build? We are going to build a gaming PC for a budget of $1,500. And we will focus on building a system that will be capable of playing games in 1080p. Because let's face it, for $1,500, you will not be playing in 4K. If you want to play in 4K, I think the graphics card alone would cost $1,500 or something like that. Well, not necessarily, but it will cost a lot more than what we will be able to put into our system. Yeah, so we'll not do that. We'll not go for 4K. You will be able to maybe pull 1440p with a $1,500 PC, but probably not on all games and probably not on max details on all games. And really, my opinion there is details and frame rate is more important than resolution. It's my opinion. Other people might have other opinion, but my opinion really is details and frame rate is more important than resolution, which is why I spent the crazy amount of money that I spent for my system, because I want 4K and I know that I don't want to compromise on details and frame rates. So this is why with $1,500 we will focus on 1080p. And really, if we're talking about normal display sizes up to 30-inch, you don't need more than 1080p. Let's face it. I never understood why there are 4K panels below 30-inch. I even don't understand why there are 4K panels below 40-inch. I mean, let me tell you, I have a 43-inch 4K panel right now, and if I don't scale things, everything is so freaking tiny. I need a magnifying glass to read stuff. So now imagine that on a 30-inch or even smaller screen. You have to scale everything, and it doesn't make sense to me. So really, if you want to go 4K, go 40-inch or larger, and anything below that, go for 1080p, 1440p, something like that. And that's what we are building our PC for here. So yeah, now of course $1,500 is not something everyone can afford. So if you would like to see a lower budget build like $1,000 or anything like that, let me know in the comments. If demand for that sort of thing is high enough, I might do a video on that as well. For now we will focus on the $1,500 budget. Now where do we start with our build? Now a good thing to start with is the graphics card, for the simple reason that the graphics card in a gaming PC will just be the single most expensive component in there. And well, that's a good point to start if we want to keep our budget. Now a good rule of thumb is for the graphics card to cost around 1/3 of your entire system, regardless of how high your budget is. So if your budget is $3,000, you can spend $1,000 on your graphics card. And you actually should. So if our budget is $1,500, the graphics card should cost around $500. That's really easy. So it's a good rule of thumb, and it makes sure that your system is balanced, so you don't overspend or underspend on your graphics card or any of the other components. So it's a good way to balance everything out, because let's say we built this PC and we spend $1,000 on all the components except the graphics card, and then suddenly we decide, well, we now build a $3,000 PC and we spend $2,000 on our graphics card. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't stick a $2,000 graphics card into a $1,000 PC. The other way around, I wouldn't build a $3,000 or $4,000 PC around a $500 graphics card. I just wouldn't do that. So yeah. That's not what we're going to do. We're going to do something sensible. So we are going to look for a $500 graphics card. Now the way we do that is we go to components, and then we'll go to video cards and we'll select desktop graphics cards, because well, we are building a desktop PC, so we'll need a desktop graphics card. So now we are here and we are greeted with 100 pages and 36 graphics cards per page, which is of course completely insane. We will never find a graphics card on this list for us. There's just no chance. So we need to narrow that down. And for that we use these fantastic filters here on the left. As you can see, there are tons of filters, and they really let us select the exact features and specifications we want, which is absolutely great. Now, which features and specifications do we want? First thing, I will go for memory size, because well, memory size is really important for playing games. You need a lot of memory to play games, because the textures and all that stuff is loaded into your graphics memory, and also the frames that your graphics card renders are first buffered in the graphics card's memory. So the higher the detail in your games and the higher the resolution you play on, the higher your memory size should be. So what do we need here? Well, for modern games and for 1080p, I would say 8 GB is the absolute minimum we should get. So we should not get less than 8 GB, or you will probably bottleneck your graphics experience. So we really need to go for at least that, and if possible higher. So we'll just select everything here. Now obviously with our budget we will not see 24 GB cards, but we might see 12 GB cards probably. So we'll just select everything above 8 because we say that's the minimum we want. Okay. Now there's a bit of a debate going on here. So some people will say, yeah, 6 GB is fine. Yeah, I would say no. My opinion here is clear. 8 GB is the absolute lowest you should go here. Then what else? We should make sure we are within our budget. So we'll select the price range, maximum $500. We'll not go below that because we want the most powerful card we can get for our money. So it doesn't make sense to select these lower prices here. Then there's one more. We want to make sure we have the newest generation of graphics card, because if I look at this list, I see graphics cards that are several years old. Now there's nothing wrong with having or even buying a several-year-old graphics card. I mean, my 1080 Ti that I have in my computer is 4 years old, and it's still a very powerful card, and you can play 1080p with that just fine even today. So that is not a problem right there. But I always say, if you spend money on technology, and as long as you don't get any drawback from buying the newest generation, you should do that, because you have more compatibility going forward. You have more upgradability. So really spend your money on the newest stuff if you can, and if you don't get any drawbacks from it. So we will not find a more powerful card that is a few years old for the same money that we can spend on a current generation card. So it doesn't really make sense to buy an old card, except if it's the only one you can get. These days that's sometimes the problem. You can't get the current gen cards because they are all sold out. But this is an example build, so we'll go for the newest stuff because that's what I always do. So memory type, yeah, we can use memory type to ensure we get the newest generation of graphics card. This is really simple. Because these are the generations of memory type. So we have DDR at the beginning, and then we go all the way up to GDDR6, which is the newest generation of graphics card memory. And that is what we should be going for. So we'll select that and apply. Now it is much better. We have only one page and 12 cards. So that is much more reasonable. We will be able to select something from here. And one last thing I like to do is I sort by best selling. For the simple reason that with computer components, you can be pretty sure that the best selling products are also quality products, because people who build computers themselves are usually, they do a lot of research. They really make sure that to get the best parts for their money. So the best-selling parts on these shops where computer parts are sold are usually the best. It doesn't need to be this one. It doesn't need to be that this one is the best. Maybe this one is the best. I don't know. But these are all good cards. You can't go wrong with any of these. So really, these are all good cards. And you can see here with the customer ratings, they all have 5x except for this one right here. But all the other ones do have 5x. And actually, yeah, it makes sense that the Zotac is the one that doesn't have 5x. So Zotac does make good cards, but well, the other companies just make better cards. That's the way it is. So yeah. So let's have a look at that. What kind of cards do we get here? As you can see, they have similar or identical numbers here. So we have an RTX 3060, another RTX 3060, and a 3060 Ti, and then even more 3060s down here. And the reason for that is, well, these are either NVIDIA or AMD cards. So these are NVIDIA cards. This one is an AMD here with this number here, RX 6700. This is an AMD card, and this is a NVIDIA card again. So there's only these two options basically, NVIDIA or AMD. And you don't buy the cards directly from NVIDIA or AMD. They actually sell their GPUs or their cards to these manufacturers that you see here, MSI, Gigabyte, Sapphire, EVGA, and so on. And then they make basically their own card out of that. They are very similar. So they will perform within a few FPS of each other. So it doesn't matter if you want to have a 3060, you can get this one or this one. It doesn't really matter in terms of FPS. There might be slight differences, but they are really not worth mentioning. What is different between these cards, as you can see, they have different coolers, they have different fans. They might have different features in terms of RGB. They have different softwares that you can use to customize or control them or overclock or whatever. They might have different display connectivity. So one card might have 2 HDMI ports and the other one just might have one, but it will have one more display port or whatever. So there are slight variances in terms of cooling and features. And that's the thing you have to look out. I mean, if you have decided on what type you want, 3060 or 3060 Ti or even the AMD 6700 here, once you have decided on that, you just need to compare features. Like, we'll do a quick example here. So we have the 3060 and another 3060. So let's compare these two together and see what the differences are. Now, obviously, we'll have same PCI Express, we'll have same speeds. We have now here's a difference, for example. So the left card has 2 HDMI, the right one has 1 HDMI. But then on DisplayPort, the left one has only 2, while the right one has 3. So this is a difference here. Then what else? Now, of course, this one is a little bit larger, this one is a little bit smaller, but well, in this price range, you will fit them in any case. It's not a problem. So with really high-end cards that are really large and long and have huge coolers on them, you need to make sure your case can actually fit them. There are cards that are too big for some cases, but within our price range, we'll not have that problem. So now, of course, there are some things missing here. Maybe the power draw would not be the same on both of these cards. So, for example, the card I'm using, there are models that have power draw of like 380, 390 watts, and the one I have goes up to 420. So this is something you need to consider. Now, the coolers, you can see they have different fans, different sized fans, different blades and everything. So if you really want to make sure you have the best card for you, you need to go and look at reviews, because with these coolers, one of these cards will probably be more noisy than the other one. So there are noise levels to consider. If you want really a silent PC and you are bothered by fan noise, you want the card with the lowest cooling noise, with the lowest fan noise. And the only way you can find that out is basically really go look at reviews, because they measure that sort of stuff. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So not just the specs here, but also stuff like cooling noise, and even how hot they get, how much power they draw. I mean, you can't see how hot they get on here. The power draw might be listed, but well, the real world is sometimes different than what manufacturers advertise. So the best way to decide on a card and which one is the best for you is really go and look at reviews. Another cool thing, another useful thing you will find on reviews are benchmarks, because once you have your few cards that you can get, and you see we have a few different ones. So which one will give you the most FPS? You can't tell from what you see here. Even if you look at specs, I mean, one card might have higher clock speeds or higher VRAM and still be slower than a card that has lower clock speeds and lower VRAM. That sort of thing happens because the card has just a better architecture or whatever. So you can't just rely on numbers. If you want to see which card performs the best within your price range, and you have a few types of cards you feel like they would be right for you, go and look at benchmarks and see these cards compared to each other in terms of how much FPS they will get you. So that's a thing you need to do if you really want the best performance for your money. And I really recommend that. I will not show you that here because the video will get too long if we do that, but you should be able to do that on your own. Just type in like RTX 3060 review, and it will take you it will show you tons of reviews that you can click on, and then you will just have to navigate to the benchmark list, and most of the time you will see similar cards in that benchmark list compared to this one. So if you go for look for a 3060, you might see benchmarks that compares this to the RX 6700 and the 3060 Ti and stuff like that. So just looking for one review of either of these cards will probably net you a benchmark overview of all of these cards. And then you can just pick the one that has the highest FPS. It's simple as that. Yeah, now if you don't want to go through all that hassle, you know what? Just pick either one of these. Personally, I would recommend go for NVIDIA because I feel like they still offer the best performance. Yeah, you can go for AMD as well, but my recommendation would be NVIDIA, but then you can get for any one of these. It doesn't really matter. I think they are all, they're all the same more or less, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah, so we'll pick one here, and one thing I want to quickly compare, there's a 3060 and there's a 3060 Ti. Now technically the Ti should be a little bit better than the normal 3060, but I see it has lower memory. It has 8 GB and this one has 12. So one thing I would really just like to do here is compare these two together and see what the differences are here. So what do we have? So the Ti card has, where is it? It has more CUDA cores, it has lower clock speed on the memory, but it has a bigger memory interface, and that's a thing that you need to look out for. So this has higher memory, but this has a broader memory interface, which means the memory is faster, so it can exchange data with the rest of the system faster, even though the clock speed is a little bit lower. So this might be one of these moments where you have like, well, this looks worse, but since this is better, this might cancel that out. So this might still be the better card because it has a higher bandwidth. So that might be one of these moments. What else? Resolution is the same, so we don't see much else that will help you. That will help us, but yeah. Now this is a difficult thing. Now we would really need to compare these cards in terms of a benchmark. So we would really need to see a benchmark, this card versus this card. But looking at this, my gut feeling tells me if we are talking about a system that should be capable of 1080p and not more, that might be the better card here. So I will just go for that one. Yeah, that's the card we will go for. We'll go for the 3060 Ti from EVGA because it has really good ratings. It seems to be the better card based on the specs I see here. Yeah, and we'll go for that. Now the problem here is that I can't put this into the cart because it is out of stock, and I can only put stuff in my cart that is not out of stock. But we'll just keep this tab open with the cart, and we'll just have to add that on top of everything else we get. So the graphics card is done, and yeah, we don't really need to consider anything about this card for the rest of the system because graphics card, well, it's a PCI Express Gen 4 16 lines card, and that will fit into any PCI Express Gen 4 computer and even a Gen 3, I think. I'm not really sure, but we'll go for Gen 4 anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So we don't need to consider anything regarding this card, and we'll just go and select our other parts. Now once we have our graphics card, the next thing we should go for is our CPU, so the processor, because that's really the heart of your PC, and it will determine some other parts as well. So yeah, we'll see what I'll talk about here. So let's go for components, CPUs and processors, and again processor's desktop, because we are building a desktop PC. So again, we have 63 pages, 36 CPUs per page, so way too much to sift through. So we will narrow that down again. Now, what do we narrow down here? I will not go Intel or AMD or anything like that. Either of these two are good right now. AMD is a little bit more advanced in terms of technology. They just offer a more advanced and better product overall, I think. Intel, on the other hand, is just solid, good performance for actually less money than AMD right now. I mean, if you compare two processors against each other from AMD and Intel that have the same performance, the Intel one will be cheaper. It's interesting because a few years back AMD would be cheaper, so it's really interesting. So right now I would say the best value for your money is Intel, because well, they are cheaper, they offer solid performance for gaming. AMD is really good if you want to do like productive tasks like rendering or stuff like that. Anything that really leverages your CPU, they are a little bit ahead there, while Intel just delivers solid gaming performance that is absolutely on par with AMD right now. So it's a little bit difficult to decide for one or the other. You will need to find out yourself. So what can we do here? So we'll go for number of cores first. These days we are all using multi-core CPUs. I would not go for a single core CPU these days. I mean, they are still available, as you can see here, but we'll really not would really not do that. So for games, games don't really make great use of multiple cores. So having like 16 cores or something like that in a gaming PC doesn't make sense. For productivity, more cores absolutely make sense. For example, if you render YouTube videos like I have to do if I make these videos, rendering really will, or encoding really will leverage your CPU cores. It will use all the cores you have and to 100%. So the more cores you have, the more encoding performance you will get. But for gaming, well, it don't really need that many cores, and CPUs get expensive if you have more cores. So the more cores you have, the more expensive they get. And I find that 8 cores is a good middle ground, and a lot of mainstream CPUs these days have 8 cores, and I really think this is a good middle ground. It's enough cores to give you good productivity if you want it. So for encoding and stuff like that, you will have a good performance here, but it will still be not too much overkill for gaming. So this is a good compromise middle ground. I would go for 8 cores. So we'll do that. Then price, we will not select the price here, because as you see with the other features I select, we will get a price range that will be okay for our system. So what else? Operating frequency. Now for gaming, as I told you, games don't really leverage multiple cores that well, but what they do profit from is clock speed, because they use fewer cores. They are more reliant on clock speed than tasks that use all the cores, that are less relying on clock speed. So for gaming, I would go with anything above 3 GHz. I would not go below 3 GHz for gaming. So we'll select that. Now what else? We need to make sure we get the newest generation. Now this means, memory types again. This is similar to the graphics card, so the higher the number here, the newer the generation. So we are currently on DDR4. DDR5 is around the corner. It will come out in a few months, probably. But currently all we can get is DDR4, and the highest one we have is 3200 megahertz. So this is the newest generation of memory right now that you can buy, and selecting that will give you all the CPUs that are compatible with that, and these tend to be the newest generation CPUs. So again, as with the graphics card, just selecting the newest memory type will ensure you just get the newest generation CPUs as well. So we'll apply that and see what we get. again, we only have one page and we only have 9 CPUs to choose from. So this is really, as I told you, these are really great. These filters, they really let you narrow down your search to exactly what you need. This is really great. I love that feature. So again, we'll select the best selling and then we see what we get. So we have 2 AMD Ryzen right here. Then we have 2 Intel cores, and then it's just the same pattern again, 2 Ryzens and 2 Intels. Now, you see, since we didn't select the price range, the price range varies greatly. So we have one that is over $600 here, and then we have one that is almost just $300. So which one do we get? Now, never spend more on your CPU than you did on your graphics card. Just don't. It doesn't make sense, okay? So that's the first one. So our graphics card is like, what's it? It's $480. So we should go below $480 in any case. So that's one. Then, yeah, that's basically it. So I would say your graphics card should be a little bit more than half what you spend. Your CPU should be a little bit more than half what you spend on your graphics card. Maybe at the maximum 2/3 of what you spend on your graphics card. But we'll see. We'll have a look at what we can get here and we'll make a decision based on that. So this is too close to the price of our graphics card here. So we'll not go for this one. Again, this one as well. This is too close to the price for our graphics card, I would say. This is a little bit overkill for the system we are building. And if we select that, we'll have trouble finding enough money for the other components. This one obviously is completely out of the question. And I want to even have a look at the stuff down here, because I would say we have our CPU actually. It's this AMD Ryzen 3700X 8-core 3.6 GHz 4.4 GHz max boost. This looks like a really good CPU for our gaming rig. And I know because I did a little bit of research on my own system, and this popped up a few times. So the 3000, oh Jesus Christ, 3000. I can't really pronounce this as a Swiss German speaker. This is really difficult for me. 3700X. So now I said it. Yeah, these numbers are really tough for a German speaker. Let me tell you. So this is really a good gaming CPU that pops up a lot if you ask for recommendations on good gaming CPUs. So it's not too expensive. It delivers solid performance. Yeah, and it has all the features we need. So we'll go for that and we'll select that. Now this we can actually add to our cart, which we'll do right now, and I don't need that. And that's it. So we have our first item in our cart because we couldn't add the graphics card, as I told you. So let's have a closer look at this CPU, because we need to know a few things now. We need to know a few things for selecting our other components. So we'll go down here, we'll go to specs, and we'll have a look at that. Now, one thing we need to know is which socket it has, because each CPU is compatible with one socket. And we need to make sure we select the motherboard with the exact same socket, or we will not be able to install our CPU. Yeah, so we need to make sure we get a socket AM4 motherboard. Okay, that's the first one we need to consider. Then what else? Now, obviously, the memory type, we already know this because we filtered that, but we also need to write down or keep in mind the memory type, which is DDR4 3200. So we have dual channel memory, which is pretty normal, so we don't really need to make a note of that because pretty much every board we will have at our disposal will have dual channel memory. PCI Express revision 4, that's an important one because we want to make use of that. Now, you can, I don't know how it is with Intel, with AMD, but with Intel you can put the newest generation CPUs with PCI Express revision 4 on the older motherboards with PCI Express revision 3. It just doesn't make sense. You can do it, but it doesn't really make sense. So we need to make sure we get a board with the same PCI Express revision. Now this is a little bit unfortunate. We only have 16 lanes on this CPU because these 16 will go to the graphics card, and I will tell you when we look at the motherboard why this is a problem. I really would have liked if it had 20, but probably we would need to spend more money for a 20-lane CPU. It would seem. Now there's another thing here. This CPU comes with a heatsink and fan included, but obviously we will not use that because that is usually the included heatsink and fans are terrible. So we'll go for a dedicated CPU cooler and we'll shop for that as well. So yeah, that's it. That's what we want here. So we'll need to make a note of the memory type, DDR4 3200. We need to make a note of the socket AM4, and we need to make a note of PCI Express revision 4.0. So that's what we need to know. Let's go back to the main page, and then again let's go to components, and now we will select a motherboard if it lets me. Motherboard. So AMD motherboards, obviously, because we have just selected an AMD CPU, we will need an AMD motherboard. And the filter, the number one filter we need to apply here is obviously the socket type, which is AM4, because otherwise we will not be able to mount our CPU. So what else? We will select ATX form factor because that's what we want. We are building a desktop PC, and the standard for desktop PC is ATX. Now, extended ATX is also possible for a desktop PC if your case is large enough. We could also go for mini or micro or mini, whatever. But it doesn't really make sense. We want to have enough space for our build. We want a large case with lots of airflow, and we'll just go for ATX. It's the standard. As you can see, there are way more ATX ports than anything else. So we'll go for ATX because that's the standard and we don't mess around with anything else. So that's the one. What else? We'll not go for price range again. CPU type, I don't think we need to select that. So memory standard, obviously DDR4 and only DDR4 3200. And we'll apply that and see what we get. So we only have 3 pages left. Let me see if we can narrow that down a little bit further. Let me see, I don't think. We'll go for the chipset next. Now, the chipset. We have 4 chipsets here. The chipset is basically... Oh, how shall I put that? Now, the your CPU is the heart of your computer, or the brain, or whatever you want. It's the heart of your computer. It's what makes your computer go. But the chipset is basically the brain of your computer. It keeps everything together. It communicates with all the parts on your motherboard. It communicates with all the ports and all the devices and stuff that's on there. There are a few things that are hooked up directly to the CPU, like the memory or the graphics card. But most of the stuff is actually hooked up to your chipset. So your chipset is like the brain of your motherboard, and the chipset needs to be compatible with your CPU. Now we have a current gen AMD CPU, and for that we'll go for the current gen chipset from AMD. Now, of course, we only have AMD chipsets here because we only have AMD boards selected, and now there are different kinds of chipsets here. Now this one, B450, this should be last gen because the current gen are the 500 series. So this should be last gen, and we will just ignore that again, go for the higher number. And then between these two, so this one is obviously some speciality because it only has 3 options here. So these are the 2 mainstream chipsets. And the way this is here with AMD, this one is more of the high-end chipset for overclockers, for high-end performance, stuff like that. We don't need that for a $1,500 PC. We'll go for the standard or for the normal chipset like here. This is still good quality. It offers you everything you need. You don't lose out on anything if you select that. You will probably save a little bit of money. So we'll go for the B550. Now, this changes all the time. Newer generations of CPUs will come with newer generations of chipsets. Now, obviously, Intel will be different than AMD, and really the only thing you can make sure you select the right chipset is, again, look at what chipsets are on offer and then do your Google search and compare these chipsets with each other and see what the differences are. There are lots of articles on that. You can go to the manufacturer's side, of course, and do a comparison there. Just make your comparison. Make sure you get the right chipset so you don't spend money on stuff you don't need, or you don't get a chipset that doesn't have all the features you want. So really compare these. I can't really tell you more than that. You have to make sure you get the right stuff for you, and to make sure you have to make sure it's compatible with everything on your system. So yeah, I know it's a lot of work, I know it's difficult, but you need to do that. If you want to build your own PC, there is a little bit of research involved, and I can't take that away from you. You have to do that yourself. So yeah, let's apply that as well and see what we end up with. We still have 2 pages, but I don't think we can go down any further. I don't really see what else we could do here. PCI Express, no, we'll leave that. I think it's okay. We can sort by best selling, and we should get our boards here. Now, the motherboard. What is a good rule of thumb here for your motherboard? I would say less than half what you spend on your graphics card, really. And at some point it just stops scaling. I mean, I have a motherboard in my PC that is, I don't know, it's like somewhere between 300 or 400 Swiss francs. It's not really expensive. I mean, I have a really expensive build, but the motherboard actually isn't a high-end one because I don't do overclocking. So I just needed a motherboard with solid quality that has all the features I need, and I didn't really care about how much performance I can get out of it when I do overclocking, because I don't do overclocking. So these high-end boards that you get, sometimes these are really meant for overclockers and people who want to get every last percent and every last frame out of their computer, and that's fine. But for normal users that just build a PC and then let it be the way it is and don't want to mess with it all the time, you can get any normal motherboard. Just make sure you gotta get a good build quality. So it should cost less than half of what your graphics card costs. So this means $200 at the maximum for our build here. So let's see what we have on offer. Now we have an Asus here, ROG Strix B550F Gaming Wi-Fi. I don't know if you want Wi-Fi. I personally, I don't use Wi-Fi, so I don't know, but maybe you want that. So this would be a good board for you. It costs $200, which is all right for our build. We could also get a MSI Tomahawk, which seems to be also a good board and costs a little bit less. So I'm a little bit torn here right now. There's another one, B550F. What's the difference? So this is on sale. It's also on Asus. It seems to be the same. I don't really know what the difference is. So yeah. What else do we have? We have an Asus B550 Plus. So we have an E. This is a little bit better than the F. What else do we have? We have an A. This is a little bit ugly with all the white and silver that's going on there. So I like to go for an Asus because I always had Asus motherboards. I don't think I ever had anything else when I did my own builds, and I'm really comfortable with these. So just because I'm biased, you can get MSI as well. It doesn't really matter. Actually, let's compare the two. Let's have a look at this one because I'm really interested in the I/O panel. It's more or less the same. So we could go for that actually. Let me have a look here. Yeah, it looks largely the same as the Asus does. Except, does it have Wi-Fi? That's the question here. That's the question here. Does it have Wi-Fi? It doesn't seem to have the no. So let's say you need or want Wi-Fi, and I don't know why this is cheaper. it's the same. Let me have a look. Is it sold by someone else? Sold by Newegg, and this one is sold by Newegg. So what the hell is the difference? It's the exact same board. Do they have it 2 times on here? Oh, Jesus Christ. What the hell? No, I don't want to recommend it. Let's get rid of that stuff. Okay. So I just want the 2 here. So what's the difference here? Again, we'll use the compare option. AMD, it's the same. Okay. I don't really see the difference, which means we'll go for this one. Yeah, I don't really see a difference, so we'll go for this one. So this is an Asus ROG Strix B550F gaming keyboard. Oh, it doesn't have the Wi-Fi. Now I see. There's a Wi-Fi variant and then there's a no Wi-Fi variant. Oh, okay. So since we said we want the Wi-Fi, we'll go on this one. So now we are on the right board. So let's have a look at this. What kinds of features do we get here? So we obviously get 4 RAM slots for dual RAM. Dual RAM means there are 2 RAM channels, so this is the memory, and you have 2 RAM per channel. So there are 2 on this side and 2 on this side, and you can get a maximum of 4 RAM in here, but we will only put 2 in here for our initial build. The idea being that if you buy 2 sticks and in 1, 2, 3 years realize you don't have enough memory, you can just buy 2 more of the same type, put it in there, and then you have upgraded your memory. So it's that's really a cool feature. Just buy 2 initially, and if you run out of memory, just buy another 2 and you will be upgraded. So we have our usual RAM configuration. We have lots of heat sinks here, some of which aren't really needed, but they look cool. So we have lots of heat sinks here. We can clearly see that this is a quality build. It looks really sturdy and it looks really clean and everything. So this is a quality board. You don't need more than that. We have 2 M.2 slots, one of which is here and one of which is here. Now M.2 is a type of SSD storage that you can stick directly onto your motherboard, and I really would recommend doing that if you can afford it, because the old variant would be SATA SSD, which would be a separate drive that we would then stick on with a cable onto one of these SATA ports here. So yeah, these are the 2 kinds of storage you can get, basically. Then your graphics card goes here. Okay, and now here's the problem with the 16 lines that I previously mentioned. Your CPU has 16 PCI Express lines and your graphics card uses 16 PCI Express lines. Now this M.2 slot right here is hooked up directly to your CPU, also via PCI Express. The problem is there aren't any PCI Express lines left. Now what happens is if you put a M.2 drive in here, it will use 4 PCI Express lines. It will actually get prioritized, and then your graphics card will lose 8. Because for some reason 12 PCI Express lines are not possible. I don't know why. Ask a technician, I don't know why. But you will run your graphics card at 8 PCI Express lines instead of the usual 16. Now, the thing here is, your graphics card, especially when we are talking about 1080p and a 3060 Ti graphics card, your graphics card will be fine with just using 8 lanes. I have looked at a lot of tests done on this, and especially with PCI Express Gen 4, which has such a high bandwidth compared to PCI Express Gen 3, it's actually double. So 8 lanes of PCI Express Gen 4 is the same as 16 lanes of PCI Express Gen 3. So your graphics card will be fine with using 8 lanes. So this is a thing where you need to prioritize. Do you want the fastest storage, the fastest SSD available? Can you spend your money on that? That's another question. Do you have the budget for that? Then by all means, install it and run your graphics card on 8 lanes. It will not matter. It will not matter for this build, really. So this is an option you have. You can obviously use the PCI Express Gen 3 M.2 slot down here that is hooked up directly to the chipset here. that is then hooked up to the CPU. So we can use that. It is only half as fast as this one, but it's still like 6 or 7 times faster than normal SSDs that you will connect via SATA. So this is your second fastest option, and it is still crazy fast, so it doesn't really matter, right? Personally, I would go for the 16 lane on the graphics card and then hook up an M.2 drive down here if I would go for this build. That's what I would do. But you can, if you want, hook up an M.2 drive up here, run your graphics card on 8 lanes. It will do so automatically. You don't have to configure anything, and you will be fine. You won't notice. So that's that in terms of features on the board. I do see one USB Gen 3 hub right here. There are a few Gen 2 ones as well. You have your fan and RGB headers. You have 2 CPU fans, I think. I'm not really sure. And we won't go into that much detail actually. So it seems to have all the stuff you want. So let's have a look at the I/O panel. You have tons of USB ports. You have 3 Type 3 USB ports. You have Type 2 USB ports. You have like 3.2 Gen 1 actually, 3.2 Gen 2. You have a Type C, Type A. You have all the things you need. You have your Wi-Fi right here. You have all the audio connectivity you want. You have all the audio jacks, and you have an optical out here. And you have your Ethernet for a network connection as well. Now, one thing I need to point out is you see you have DisplayPort and HDMI on here. This will only work with AMD CPUs that have integrated graphics. The 3700X we have does not have integrated graphics, so these will not do anything. They're just on here in case you get a CPU that has onboard graphics. In our build, we don't have that. Just be aware of that. These two will do absolutely nothing here. Yeah, and that's our board. I think that will be fine. We'll throw that into our card. Yeah, right, like that, and we don't want that, and we don't want that. So let's go back and continue this. Now, since we no, we'll do the cooler. We'll do the cooler last if we know how much money we'll have left. So let's go for memory next. Again, components, memory, and again, desktop memory. Now, this is pretty easy because we exactly know what we want. As I told you, we need DDR4, so that's this one. We need speed. Actually, we can deselect that because we have it down here with the speed. We need DDR4 3200. That's the maximum our CPU and our board is compatible with. Now, you can get faster RAM. You can get faster RAM even if your CPU or your board is not officially compatible with it. There are actually compatibility lists on the internet where you can see what runs with what. Now there's a thing, there's a debate going on here as well. There's always a debate going on with computer parts. Some people will tell you that faster RAM are a great thing to have. I will tell you that faster RAM really don't pay off, basically. Because as soon as we climb up this ladder with higher speeds, we will pay way more for our RAM. And I have seen benchmarks, the FPS you get out of this, it's not worth it. You get a few frames. RAM is not the most important thing when gaming. It is important, but it's not the most important thing. Your graphics card is the most important thing, and then comes your CPU, and RAM is really down the ladder. So with faster RAM, you will get a few FPS, maybe. It really depends on the title as well. But really, we are talking about single-digit FPS improvements here. And the money you will spend on it, or the amount of time you will have to put into manually overclocking lower speed RAMs, it is just not worth it for the average gamer. Now, if you're someone who cares about every last frame and you want to compete with other people and you want to show off your build and brag about how many frames you get out of it and how many points in any kind of benchmark score you get, yes, then it's worth it because that's something you care about. But if you just want to play games, Really, go for just for the highest memory that is officially compatible with your CPU and your board. You will be happy with that, and you will not spend money on something you don't really profit from. So let's select that. And what else can we get? Yeah, let's select that and nothing else. So now capacity. How much RAM do you need? Again, there's a discussion. How much RAM do you need for your computer? It's silly, but it's the way it is. So my personal recommendation, based on the research I did for gaming today, 16 gigabytes is enough. There are some special games that use more than 16 gigabytes. One example would be City Skylines. When you run that with a lot of mods, you can use 32 gigabytes. You can actually use more than 32 gigabytes on that game, which is insane. But yeah, these are special cases. For normal gaming, 16 gigabytes is enough. If you want to future-proof yourself, you can go for 32 gigabytes. If you want to do video editing, you should go for 32 gigabytes. But yeah, for gaming, 16 is enough. And as I told you when we looked at the motherboard, you will get 2 sticks of RAM right now, which means you can always upgrade later. The only thing you need to make sure is that you get the same type of RAM, the same speed, the same manufacturer, the same latencies, just basically the identical set of RAM you bought when you first build a system should go into the expansion, just to make sure everything is compatible and runs smoothly with each other. But it's always possible to upgrade your RAM if you just go with 2 sticks when you first build your system, and that's exactly what we will do. So we'll go for 16 gigabytes, and we will select that we want, actually we'll go for 8, and then we'll say 2 sticks of 8 gigabyte, which will be 16 gigabytes. So that's the one we want. Now we have 2 filters. We have the type of memory we want, and we have the size of memory we want, and we'll just apply that. And as you can see, we only have 6 pages, which is quite a lot, but I would just sort that by best selling and see what we get. And actually what we get is exactly what I hoped we would get, because you can see we have our Corsair Vengeance LPX RAM here, which is exactly the RAM I got in my system. Now I have the 64 gigabyte set, so 4 times 16, but other than the size, it's the same. This is the exact same RAM I have, and I always default to these whenever I build a system. I mean, the Corsair Vengeance RAMs have been around forever. They get updated to the new generations every time there is a new generation, and I find that these are just the best bang for the buck. It's the best value for my money I can get. It's just my opinion. I might be wrong about that, but what I like about these, they are simple. They don't have fancy RGB on them. They don't have crazy heat spreaders. Yeah, they do come with a cooler in the box that you don't need, but yeah, they just, as they are without the cooler, they are just very simplistic RAM that do their job and not much more. What I also like about these, as you can see on these pictures here, they are really low profile. And now, why is that important? If you get a really big CPU cooler, that will overhang over your RAM slots, which means if you have like crazy big RAM that sticks out from your board several centimeters, this might conflict with your cooler. Actually, I have these very low profile RAM right here, and they conflict with my cooler. They do. I mean, let's just imagine I had bought something like this. I would not have been able to mount my cooler. I mean, I already have problems with these, and these are the lowest profile RAM I could find on here. So yeah, just be careful there. Really make sure your RAM fit under your cooler, and there's actually a great picture which we will look at. So that's what I mean. You can I click on this? Yeah, you can see your RAM, and here is your cooler. You see that? That's the problem. If you have higher RAM, this will impact with your cooler, and actually in my build it does, because my cooler is unfortunately a little bit lower, and it presses on this innermost RAM here actually, and this is a bit unfortunate. It's not problematic, but when I first built the system, it actually pushed out this stick here, and it caused my RAM to be completely messed up. I had to remove the cooler, put that back in, and then very carefully remount my cooler and make sure this doesn't slide out of its slot again. So there's a little bit of a problem there. So you need to make sure this fits. You get a height here, and you need to make sure it fits under there if you have a overhanging CPU cooler. Now let's get back to the RAM. So yeah, these are the RAM we want. There's just one thing actually I want to tell you here. The timings are also important. So if you can compare different RAMs with each other, they all need to be the same speed because that's the speed we want. But you can look if you find anything with lower latencies. But I will tell you, you will not find anything with lower latencies here that is not crazy overpriced. Now, what is latency? Let me just tell you very shortly. Now, this is the speed. This is the clock speed of your memory, how fast your memory will work, basically. This is how fast it will respond. So how many milliseconds it will take to respond to any request from the CPU. Now, I'm not sure if it's milliseconds actually, but I think it is. Anyways, this is how fast it will respond, and this is how fast it will work once it responds. So lower numbers here are better, while higher numbers here are better. But really, once you get to like 15 or 14 in CAS latency, which is this one here, the prices will go up dramatically. Actually, let's have a look if we can find any that have lower latencies. For example, so where do we have some really expensive RAM? These ones, do they have lower latencies? No, they still don't have lower latencies. But we have a selection here. So these are $120 with 16. Let's go for 14. And see what happens to the price. You see what happened there? Let's go for 15. They don't have 15, but 14. It's double the price for just 2 points of lower latency. It's double the price. So no. Again, this will net you a few frames at the most. So we'll be fine with a latency of 16. Again, this is just really for people who want every last bit of performance from their system. So we will add this to cart, and we'll be happy with that. No, we don't want that. So let's go back. What is the next thing we need? The next thing we need is storage, because we need to store our games somewhere. So we'll go back here and we'll go for storage devices. Now, let me just click on that. So we have several options here. We have actually two options. We have hard drives, which is the classical spinning disk, and we have SSDs. Well, what shall I tell you about this? Personally, I absolutely hate hard disks. They are slow, they are noisy, they are fragile, and I just don't see much use for them these days. Now, of course, if you want cheap storage for a lot of data that you don't regularly touch, like if you want to archive your YouTube videos or your home videos, if you have a large photo collection of high resolution pictures, if you just keep every bit of data around from the day you were born until now, or anything like that, a hard drive might be a good idea because it's cheap, it can store large amounts of data, and if you don't touch it too often, it will survive for a long time. So it's a good and cheap solution for high volume storage. But these days, SSDs do have large capacities. They are way more expensive than hard drives. That is true, but if you don't really want to store crazy amounts of data, I would always go for SSDs. They are just so much more faster and more reliable and less noisy. They don't use as much power, and they are smaller and lighter, and they're just better in every way except that they are more expensive. So for a gaming PC, I will not touch hard drives. I will just not. But I might. No, I don't. It's just forget about hard drives. We'll go for SSDs. And if you're really interested in why you shouldn't get a hard drive these days, I will make a comparison video for you guys. Again, put it down in the comments if you like to see something like that. So now, of course, we want internal SSDs because we want our SSD to be inside the case. And now there are two options. We can get M.2 drives, or we can get normal SATA drives, which would be these 2.5-inch drives here. But actually, I will apply another filter. First, I want to go for 2 terabytes. Believe me, you need 2 terabytes. I have, in my old computer, I have 1 terabyte of SSD. And the last 2 years, all I did was try to find stuff I can uninstall, I can delete, or I could move out to a hard drive for long-term storage, because my 1 terabyte was constantly full, and I came to the point where if I hadn't built my new PC, I would have upgraded my storage in my old one, because 1 terabyte is just not enough these days. I mean, we have games that are 100 gigabytes and more in size on your hard drive, on your drive. So just install a few of these, and you will have your 1 terabyte full in no time. So 2 terabytes, I think, is the minimum you should have in a gaming rig these days. And we only want 1 drive, we don't need multiple, so we'll just go for 1 2 terabyte drive here. And that's basically it, just apply that. And another thing I will do, this is the only thing, the only time I will actually select a manufacturer. I mean, I told you I like NVIDIA, I like Asus, but I also told you you can get whatever you want. This time I will tell you, go for Samsung. Samsung just, in my opinion, makes the absolute best SSD drives. It's the best value for money you can get in terms of SSD drives. I never had a problem with Samsung SSD drives, and you can also see there are 2 Samsungs right here. They have full 5-egg ratings throughout, so go for Samsung. Really, it's just the one I would go for. And to narrow this down a little bit, you will not be disappointed by Samsung. So just select that and apply, and we'll have a much shorter selection again. So let's go for best selling, and what I really like here, these are the drives I have. So this is my primary drive right here that I have in my current build. This is my secondary and tertiary drive that I have in my build. And if I would need another one, because these 3 are not enough, the one I would get is that one. So yeah, that's exactly what I said. I mean, Samsung is just, they make great drives, and other people seem to think so as well. So yeah, so let's have a look at these. Either of these are 2 terabytes. Now, what's the difference? Let's go from right to left. This one is an M.2 drive that will go directly onto your motherboard, and this is the PCI Express Gen 3 one that hooks up to the chipset. Then we have the M.2 PCI Express Gen 4 one, which is the one that would hook up directly to your CPU and would take away PCI Express lanes from your graphics card. So as you can see with prices here for our build, this will not be possible. If we spend $400 on a storage drive, we will overshoot our budget. So the discussion about should we sacrifice 8 lanes for our graphics card to install one of these is basically done with this. We might be able to get this one because the price difference is like $70 here. It's $70. I don't know if we can do that. I would recommend going for that because this is faster, way faster. Let's have a look here. So this writes and reads at around 3500 megabytes per second, which is crazy. If we go back and have a look at the standard one, basically at the SATA drive here, this will read and write at around 550 megabytes per second, so about a sixth of what the other one does. So this is way slower, but it is still fast. I mean, don't get me wrong here, it is still fast. It's fast enough for the average user. And because we are on a budget here, I would actually say let's go for this one. We'll do that. We'll go for this one. This is a really good SSD drive, 2 terabyte, Samsung, top of the line. Really, we can't do much better than that. So let's go for that. Add that to our card, and again, we don't want the extended warranty, so let's deselect that. And yeah, we have our storage drive. So what else do we need? Now we go for the CPU cooler, because we need to cool our CPU. Now with AMD, you get a stock cooler, but these are really terrible, so just don't use it. Just buy one and use that. So we'll go for computer components again. We'll go for cooling. Where is cooling? Fans and cooling. So let's say, where is it? CPU, fans, and heatsinks. So one thing we need to make sure is we have the right socket, because each socket has compatible coolers. So you may need to make sure, just with the board, just as with the board, you need to select a cooler that is compatible with your CPU socket. So we'll select AM4, we'll apply that. So another thing I would select here is the price range, if I can find it. Yeah, it's down here. So we will not be able to spend more than $100. And actually I would try to spend not more than $75. So we'll apply that as well. So then again, best selling, especially with coolers, you'll probably get the best ones if you go for best selling. And then just let's find one that has a full rating and a reasonable amount of ratings. So now just a personal note, Noctua builds the absolute best coolers you can get, but they are ugly as hell. As you can see, I don't know what's up with these fan colors. I will never understand it. I mean, nowadays they do have some black variants, but they are fairly rare, so most of their coolers still have this ugly flesh brown, whatever you want to call it, color, and I would not stick that in my case, especially these days when you have full glass panels on the left side of your case. So yikes, no, will not do that. So let's look for a nice looking cooler here. Let's see what we can find. So I always like having dual fans because I feel like they give you more cooling power. If possible, I also like having dual towers because they have more heat spread capacity. But in this price range, to have both seems to be difficult. We have a dual tower here with one fan, and we have a 2 fan here with 1 tower. So you can't get both, it seems. So let's select a solid, good looking cooler. So we have Cooler Master, again Cooler Master. I will go for an all black, actually. These are the coolest ones, I think. So we have an Enermax here. Does this have 2 fans? It seems it does. Another Enermax here. This has nice RGB, actually. Russian Tech. Okay, so which one should we get? So I shouldn't spend too much time on the CPU cooler, I just realized. This is another Cooler Master, but it has really terrible ratings, so I will not go for that. Now, obviously, if you do that, you would spend much more time researching each part and really read up on what people think of it and maybe go look at the review. But since we have limited time, I will just go and choose one now. For example, so the Enermax are the ones with 2 fans. I want one with 2 towers, which is obviously the Noctua one here, which is the ugly one. Oh, Jesus Christ. So, you know what? I have a Be Quiet. I have a Dark Rock Pro, so let's go for the Dark Rock Slim. That should be alright. Let's go for the Dark Rock Slim. How high is that? We need to know how high that is. That is CPU cooler height, 160 millimeters. Keep that number in mind. That is important when we select our case, because we need to make sure our cooler fits in the case. So 160 millimeters right there. So let's add that to the cart. Don't want that. And yeah, go back. So what else? We need a power supply to power all that stuff. Now, how do you know how much power you need? There are 2 things you can consider. One is, let's go back to our graphics card. Let's scroll down a little bit, and somewhere it should tell you recommended power supply. Where does it tell you? It should actually. Maybe sometime it doesn't. Yeah, system requirements. So it tells you to have a 600 watt or greater power supply, just to make sure that you will not run into a power bottleneck. So 600 watt or greater, that's a good number here. So we have that, but we can also do something else. We can, they have a power supply calculator somewhere. Let's go to power supplies. Power supplies, and then they should have a calculator somewhere. Not really sure how to get there. So wattage calculator, yeah, there it is. If you scroll down on the left side where the filters are, right at the bottom is the wattage calculator. So we'll go on there, and this does, it lets you calculate how much watts your power supply should have. So let's try that out. So we have an AMD CPU, and we have the 3700X Ryzen. This one. We have a ATX motherboard. We have a NVIDIA graphics card. We have the 3060 Ti. We have one of these. We have 16 gigabyte, 8 gigabyte of DDR4, and we have 2 of these. We have one solid state drive over 1 terabyte. We have no hard drive, and we don't have an optical drive. So now this tells us to have 400 watts, which I find dangerously low. Let's be honest. I have compared different power supply calculators, and you can find these by just going to Google and type in power supply calculator. You will get a ton of recommendations there. And most would suggest much higher number than this. I mean, 400 watts, I really find that dangerously low. It will not give you any headroom. It will not... You will not be able to upgrade your system, because anything else you put in there beyond what you initially have will mean you also need a new power supply. And really, with power supplies, this is the one part where I really urge people to overspend a little. Go higher than what you actually need. You might one day use it and you will be happy you made the right decision and buy a higher capacity supplier than you actually needed at the time. Best example, my old computer has a 650 watt power supply, and I would not have been able to put anything else in that system than what I already had in there. If I went for a new graphics card, if I would add additional SSDs or anything else, I would have had to buy a new power supply, because I was too conservative when I built the system and I didn't calculate in any headroom. And that's a mistake I will not repeat, and I urge you not to make that same mistake. So really, if this says, and let's round that up to 400 watts, I would at least put 50% on top of that. So for 400 would mean plus 50%, 600 watts. And you see now that EVGA, when they made this recommendation, had the same mindset. They probably know that 400 will be enough, but they want to make sure you don't run into any bottlenecks and you do have enough headroom for upgrades. So they too recommend go for 600 watts, which is the same recommendation I would make here. So 600 watts at a minimum for this build. So that's what we will do. So we have our power supplies here, and we can now select 600 to 700 watts. And another thing I want is a 80 plus certificate. Now, what is this? This just ensures that your power supply is efficient and of good quality. Because 80 plus means that it will run at least 80% efficiency, and the higher the certificate, I mean you have gold, platinum, silver, titanium, bronze, stuff like that, the higher the certificate is, the higher the efficiency is. So with platinum and titanium, it will be somewhere in the 90s, so 95% efficiency or something like that. So this just means that you will waste less power and you will just have a overall better quality power supply. Now obviously the prices go up, so with our budget we'll not go and shop for a titanium or platinum, but I would recommend going for gold. And as you can see, gold is the most common one. This is the bronze is the lowest here, and or the second lowest, I would say, and then comes gold, and you can see gold is a good middle ground. It's fairly efficient. It's not the highest efficiency, but it's a good compromise between price and efficiency. So I would go for 80 plus gold certified, and make sure you get one of these. So you will have a good efficiency, you will not waste much power, you will have a good quality power supply for steady and stable power supply to your system. Good. Now, what else do we need to select here? That's actually it, I would say. I mean, not much else. 80 plus, 600 to 700 watts, and just select the best selling again and see what we get. Now, we have a lot of EVGA up here. Then we have some Corsair, Seasonic, Thermaltake. These are all good power supplies. You don't really need to... yeah, I wouldn't get a Montec. I don't really know what that is. MSI, yeah, probably not. But Fractal Design, no. Actually, let's go for one of these up here. So I don't know the other brands, at least not when it comes to power supplies. I know Corsair, I know Dark Power. I know Be Quiet. I know Seasonic, of course. I once had a Superflower. I don't know how they are these days. The one I had, I wasn't too happy with, but yeah, whatever. Just go for the best-selling ones up here and make sure we don't spend too much money on it. And actually, when I look at these, what I see is a full 5-egg rating. I see $90 because it's on sale. And yeah, it's fully modular and everything. So let's click on that. So this is a EVGA Supernova. This looks really high quality actually. It has all the things we need: one CPU, then motherboard, 3 SATA, or 2 SATA and 1 peripherals, 2 VGA. Yeah, for our build, this is more than enough. That's all we need. So the higher tier and the higher the wattage and the higher the tier of your power supply, you will see more. More options here, but this is all you need for the build we are doing. So this is a good power supply. It looks like fairly good quality. Yeah, it has black cables. Now this is an important one. You don't want like colored cables, or maybe you want, but then you probably want to decide on what colors you get. But usually make sure you get a power supply with modular cables, so they are not already attached to the supply, and you get black cables, so they are really neutral and they don't really look bad in your system. So this is fine. Yeah, this is fine. We'll add that to the cart, and we don't want that. So okay, if I'm not mistaken, we have everything except the case. So let's see how much money we have left for the case. So we have, let's have a look here. So we have our board, we have no we have our board, we have our power supply, then we have our CPU, we have storage, we have memory, and we have our cooler right there, and we have of course our graphics card over here. So we seem to have everything except the case. So this is $986, and we have another 480 over there, which means we don't actually have any money left for our case, which is not a good thing. So let's see where we can scrape off some money. Definitely not here. I wouldn't go below that. Definitely not here. Definitely not here. This is the cheapest one we could get, except if we don't get Samsung, but I really want Samsung here. The power supply I think was the cheapest one as well. Let's go back here and see if we can find anything else here. 80 plus gold, we really want that. And let's again, best selling, so we have $90. Yeah, and I think we could go $80 with this one. Yeah, this has attached cables, which I don't like, so no, I think, okay, there is one that has yeah, that's not modular. We really want a modular power supply. We really want that. So what's this one? This is Thermaltake, and this is not modular, so no, we can't save money on the power supply, no way. Now this is, let's go back to the motherboard. Let's go back to that actually. Let's go back to Asus motherboards. Let's select AM4. Then the chipset, where is it? B550, it's actually up here. Let's apply that. And let's look for best selling again. Now we had one that was cheaper. This one, it doesn't have Wi-Fi. That's the question. Do we need now Wi-Fi? We don't really know. I personally don't use Wi-Fi, so yeah, let's swap that out. Let's go for that one. Let's add that one to cart. No thanks. Then hey, go to our cart, and then we'll so no, I'm not interested. Let me just see. Yeah, I need to scale that up a little bit for you guys. So yeah, so we will remove that, and now we have 960 and 480. That means we are on 1,440. So $60 for a case. Is that possible? We will see. We'll try. Okay, let's go look for a case. Let's go and look for a case. Again, components, and then, oh, actually I didn't want to click. So components, and then computer cases, and just computer cases. Don't go for gaming cases. We will go for ATX full tower and mid tower. These are smaller builds. If you want to do that, you can look at these, but then you will need to make sure you get a different board, because these are not made for ATX boards, and I don't know what the hell a super tower is. We'll just go for mid tower and full tower. These are big cases that will give you lots of space to build in, and yeah, we'll go for one of these. Yeah, apply. Yeah, really apply. Don't really need to do anything more than that. Oh, we need to narrow down our price range, so we can't spend more than $60, we said. So let's see what we can do there. And then let's just see what the best selling cases are. So do we get one that is decent for $60? Maybe one that's on sale? Yeah, let's see. Now, one thing that I really want to get across here is where do we see one that's a bad example? So this looks actually good for our purposes. Let's have a look here. Yeah, we'll have a look at that in a moment. I just want to show you something before we do that. And don't really... Okay, that looks like a candidate here. Yeah, that looks like a candidate. Let's have a look here. Yes, this does have a solid front panel. Now, this is just an example to show you something that I really don't like about modern cases, because I think, yep, that's exactly how I thought it was. So the problem with this case is it has a full solid front panel. So where the hell do you get your air from? Where the hell do you get your air from in this case? I have no idea. I mean, there is no side intake, so there are gaps here. As you can see, there's a gap here, there's a gap here, and I expect that the design here is that the airflow should go through these gaps. So if you have fans in the front, which you can have fans in the front here, yeah, the air will come in through these gaps. And let me tell you, if you're going for an air-cooled build, which we do, because we don't have a lot of money, we will be going for an air-cooled build, this will not work. This will seriously hamper your airflow. Even though there are gaps here where air can flow into the case, it will not be enough. So avoid any case that has a solid front panel, except it has some other cooling solution like side intake. My case does have that. I don't have front intake, I have side intake for the cooling air, and that actually works fine. Some cases have bottom intake, that is also okay. It's actually pretty great because the air will go directly into your graphics card, which will be here, and then out on top, so that is good as well. But this case, it doesn't have any other intake than the front, and the front is sealed off except for these small slits on the side here. So don't buy a case like this. Just really don't. Go on YouTube, watch airflow videos, go to Gamers Nexus. They do great case reviews, and they will tell you the same. Don't buy a case with a solid front panel unless it has some other air intake solution like the bottom or the side. So just a really quick tip there, because I really don't want to see people building airflow cases with these types of cases. It's just not a good idea. So let's find a case for $60. So where was it? So that doesn't look too bad. So let's have a look at this. So it has full mesh in the front. It has one fan there. It isn't that big actually. It's quite a small case from the looks of it. So let's just have a look here. Is that a 120mm? Yeah, this is a really small case actually. How are we doing on fans in this? I only see one. And that's a problem. We don't have money left to buy fans, so we can't get this one. We don't have money left to buy fans. Except if we scale back on our graphics card. Let me try. So we have a $460 graphics card. Where was it? $480. We could get, if we don't get for the Ti, I mean the 3060 would still be okay. So this is the thing you need to do. If you really want to keep within your budget, you might need to go back and look for cheaper options, and that's exactly what we do here. So we really need a good case. We need a good case, and this seems to be a good card here. So it is $20 cheaper. So let's go for that. Let's go for that. So we just went down to 460, and we have what do we have here? So we have $80. So we have $80. That's actually a little bit better. So let's go there and apply that. And now best selling still. So let's go for $80 here. Now one thing you need to consider here, just let me show you. This is a case that has slots for optical drives. If you want to have an optical drive inside your case, like a CD-ROM or Blu-ray or DVD-ROM or whatever, you will need to get a case like this that has these slots, because most cases these days don't. So that's just a quick thing I wanted to show you as well. So let's go for $80. Oh, that would be a good case. That would be a fantastic case here, but it's $15 too expensive. Let's try to find one with fans in it for $80. That's actually this has really good ratings here, so let's have a look at this. So this has a solid front panel, but it does have quite large openings on the side and also on the top, so this might actually work. It has an additional fan in the bottom here, so let me just quickly skip. So there is the airflow diagram. So it has intake from the bottom, it has intake from the front, so this compensates. Now this is what I meant. If you have a different option, this actually compensates a little bit for the hampered front air intake. So you see, you have good airflow here on the side because these slits are much larger than the ones we saw in the other case, and you also have slits on top and at the bottom, and you have an additional fan here that will blow directly into your graphics card. So this should be fine. You have, so one included. You have 5 fans. You have 3 RGB fans, 2 normal fans. You could, if you have some money left over, or if you can spend some money later, you have the option to have additional fans in the top. This would obviously be outtake fans. Actually, I think this is a good case. It has really high ratings, 5 out of 5x with 121 ratings. Yeah, it's all we want for $70. It's all we want for $70, really. So, yeah, we'll not look further. We will not look further. We'll add that to our cart. And mission accomplished. We have $1,030 right here. And we have another $460 here. So we have even $10 left over for whatever we want. So yes, this is a good build. Actually, this is a really good build, I would say. So we have it's not the prettiest case, but it will provide us with adequate cooling for this system. It does have RGB fans, which will make it look nice when it's dark. It will have enough room to mount everything we need. Oh, and I forgot, we'll quickly take a look at what kind of CPU cooler we can fit in there, because I told you we need to make sure. So our cooler is 160 millimeters and this is 175 millimeters. This is all right. So let's go back. So yeah, so we had to sacrifice the Wi-Fi. Now, obviously, we are $10 below budget. So we could say, well, you go back to the $200 motherboard and you have Wi-Fi. This would mean you will overspend like, yeah, $15 or something like that. So you will be overspending a little, but $15, that's a meal. So it's not like $1,500 is really the absolute cap and you can't go $1 over that. So this is up to you. If you have a situation like this where you're like, yeah, I have my budget, I'm $10 beneath it, but I had to scale down, I had to go back, I had to sacrifice the Wi-Fi here, I had to sacrifice the 3060 Ti and go back to a 3060. You can now still say and be like, well, let's overspend a few bucks and get one better. So let's go back to the 3060 Ti, or let's go back to the motherboard that had the Wi-Fi. You see, you can always play with that. So there's nothing lost here. So yeah, I think this is a really good build, and maybe you get lucky on some sales. So you might save a few bucks there. As you can see, we have a lot of items that are on sale right now. Now I could be like, well, we only consider the normal prices, but well, there's always a sale somewhere, so it's not wrong to include stuff like that in a example build, because when you are doing your build, you will probably have a sale somewhere. So, and we didn't even compare prices with other stores. You can then always be like, so yeah, I have my build, but I'm like $100 over budget. You can then go and compare your most expensive parts with other shops and see if you can get it cheaper somewhere else. There is always an option to get something cheaper somewhere else. So it means a little bit more research, a little bit more time investment, but it might save you a few bucks, or it might enable you to get a better build than you would have if you get everything from the same store. Yeah, that's basically that. So I will put links to all these components down below if you want to have a look at these. Now, I would not say you should go and build exactly this PC. I mean, I'm fairly confident that this will work and this will be a good gaming PC. It will be balanced and it will deliver you good performance. But usually I spend much more time researching my parts, so I wouldn't just go through the shop and click on something and be like, oh yeah, that has all the features I need, buy that. I wouldn't do that, and I do not recommend it to you. This is a basic list that you can make, and then I would really recommend go and read reviews or watch reviews on all these parts if available. And see if they really are as good as they look on paper. Now, obviously, these are best-selling parts. They have high ratings in the store, but still, sometimes there's some little detail that bothers no one else, but that I find problematic for some reason. And in that case, I would like to know that before I buy the product, or I would be surprised and maybe disappointed. So, really, do your research. I can't take that away from you. I can't make a video where I will go into every detail and every feature and every spec and explain everything about every part. It would take too long. I mean, this is probably a 2-hour video by now. So, yeah, I can't do that, unfortunately. But I can tell you to do your own research. And if you have any questions about these parts, about this build, about selecting parts, about where you can do your research, how you should do your research, how you make sure stuff is compatible, how much you should spend on what part, what features you need and what features you don't need. If you have any questions at all, write them down in the comments below the video. I will answer to everything. If something is interesting enough to make a video about it, I might even do that. Really, I'm here to share my, well, I wouldn't say my knowledge, but my experience that I have from building PCs. Now, I know I'm not the most experienced person. I probably even made a few wrong statements or mistakes here and there, but certainly nothing major. But I will try to help and answer questions to the best of my ability, and will try to share the knowledge that I have. And yeah, you are invited to ask me anything. So I think that's it for this video. If you liked it, please leave a like below, because it really helps the channel, and I really would like to expand it. So leave a like if you found this helpful, and if you want to see more of more content like this. I might do more hardware videos in the future. I will primarily stay a gaming channel here, but I like doing hardware videos, and also what I realized, it helps me keep up with the current technology, because after not building a PC for 7 years, I realized that I completely lost track of a lot of stuff, and it took me an entire month to get back up to speed. And well, if I could do hardware videos every now and then on my channel, it would help me keep on track and keep up to date. So I'll probably do that. Yeah. And I hope if I do that, you will be back then and join me and watch my videos and hopefully enjoy them. So yeah, until then, I wish you all the best. Have a great time. Stay safe and stay healthy. And yeah, bye.